Good evening, everyone, and welcome to your Rangers Review Team News reaction video. The teams have dropped at Ibrox and for tonight's Europa League tie between Rangers and Lyon. Joshua is in the bills of Ibrox Forest in the press room. Before we talk about the team, Joshua, what's on the menu tonight?
I'm hoping you can hear me, Derek, tonight, because
I can't hear
the Rangers Wi-Fi is inconsistent at best this evening, on which normally it's pretty good. On the menu, chicken or lamb, which is nice options, but as I said to you before we came on the show, not the biggest portions tonight. So that's the only negative, but relatively well-fed pre-match.
Yeah, well, hopefully you get your fills worth after our chat right now. But let's talk about the team. We'll get up on the screen. No real surprises, you could say. The one change from the team that started against Malmo last Thursday. So Rangers lining up with Butland in goal, a back four of Tavernier, Suter, Proper and Jefte, who comes back after serving his one-match suspension. Barron and Diamandi returns after missing on Sunday against Hibs. In the midfield, Tom Lawrence keeps his place in front of those Czerny and Bayrami supporting Cyril Dessers up top. So that is the Rangers starting 11 this evening. On the substitutes bench tonight, they go with Kelly, Dowell, Sterling, Casanvirjo, Balogun, Igaman, King, Raskin, McCausland, Fraser, McKinnon, and Zach Lovelace. Expected Jefte to come back into the team, Joshua. I mean, you created a bit of a stir on social media. You never had James Tavernier in your starting 11, but no surprise to see that the manager is sticking with the skipper at right back. What's your thoughts on tonight's team?
Yeah, well, I'm only doing that because in about 2 weeks' time, James Tavernier will be rotated, and everyone, I'll put that out, and people will think I've called it right, and in effect, I've just been guessing it for weeks. But no, I mean, the reason I did that was because I thought, look, as we've discussed in the show a lot, he could well go and have a good game tonight. It's not necessarily an individual thing about him. It's just the fact that Clement has said he will be rotated, and he's not been rotated yet. And you have two other players in that position in Casanvirjo and Sterling who are probably better defenders. So you think logically, will that rotation not come? Maybe in a European game where Tavernier's attacking influence is somewhat waned, but then equally we could come back and have this conversation in a couple hours. And he scored because he tends to score on European nights. So you can understand why Clement is stuck with that decision. Derek, I guess the only question is, when is that rotation going to happen? Very much tried and tested. I believe it's only one change from last week against Malmo. Tom Lawrence continues at the top of midfield. It looks like that's kind of Clement's favoured starting 11 with the options that he has at the moment. You'd imagine that Jefte will try and play nice and high to allow Bayrami to tuck in field as well. And it looks like Rangers, to their credit, are going for it instead of trying to lock up the midfield. We'll read out the Lyon team in a second, but in particular in that midfield area, there's a lot of experience, maybe a slight concern that Rangers could get overrun in there with Veretout and Nemanja Matic and Tolisso as well, all of whom have had excellent careers. Who's going to win the battle for legs? I thought you might see Rangers just go with a little bit more youth in order to try and win that in there, but largely it is the team as expected, and it's the back four. I guess it is important to mention when you're talking about why will the rotation come at right back. It's a back four that's kept 4 clean sheets in a row, which I'm sure was on Philippe Clement's mind as well.
Yep, that Lyon team, incidentally, 4-3-3 they line up. Perry in goals, a back four of Maitland-Niles, Mata, Kaleta-Car and Tagliafico. Midfield three of Tolisso, Matic and Veretout. I think that's how you pronounce the boy's name. With Fofana, Lacazette and Cherki leading the line. They've got a very strong bench as well. Like Wilfried Zaha on their side, Benrahma. They've got a few others that are star players. There's no doubt about it, Joshua. This will be a very tough test for Rangers against a team that haven't started particularly well in the league in France, but decent result last week against the Conference League champions in Olympiacos. So listen, I would probably, I know Thursday nights at Rangers nights, Ibrox under the lights, and magical things can happen, but I know the manager said a draw would be a decent result in his pre-match press conference. I think it would be going up against a side of this quality.
Yeah, I mean, the they haven't started the season brilliantly, but you only have to look at that team, especially when you're looking at their options on the wing, Derek. They're starting Churchy out there, and they've got the possibility of bringing Zaha off the bench on that same side. That is, you're not short of quality in that regard. And the midfield three is a midfield three that has got so much experience and quality in amongst it. Clement I thought he wanted to emphasise quite a lot yesterday the fact that Lyon had a lot of money, effectively had spent a lot of money, because obviously they haven't started the season brilliantly. Whether that was trying to temper expectations, I don't know. You're right, when Rangers are at home in Europe, they tend to do well. They're comfortable here. It's their first European game back at Ibrox. The start's going to be really important. How much they have of the ball to try and allow Barami to play in the field and Chefty to go high and wide and get that extra man in the middle instead of the game going end to end. I think that would suit Lyon more, especially given the quality they have at wide. I mean, Churchy is the name that immediately stands out to me. It's going to be a difficult game for the back four defensively, and I think Chefty and Tavernier are both going to be tested defensively a lot. Would expect Tavernier to sit back a little bit more than Chefty on the other side and tuck inside the pitch. That's why I thought you might see a Sterling or a Casemiro. I know Sterling hasn't played full-back much this season, and Casemiro's only played left-back, but I thought he was good in Malmo. I thought you might just see that more natural kind of, both those players can play centre-half, and I thought that might see one of them come in to the right-back position to just give you a little bit more cover in there. But if you're looking at that Lyon team, loads of quality on the bench as well. They spent a lot of money in the summer. You've got Benrahma and Zaha both to bring off the bench in terms of options on the wings, and it's I'm handing the team sheet, and it's going to be I think the heavy emphasis on how Rangers start the game, and whether they can dominate the territory somewhat. But there's no doubt it's a really difficult opponent, regardless of where they are in the league. Equally, Rangers have beaten opponents of similar stature before at home in the Europa League, so it's going to be intriguing to see what happens.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the Rangers starters. Scott Beebe, a point I wanted to bring him up anyway. He says, hopefully Czerny can take the criticism positively and respond with a performance. He was poor on Sunday, Joshua. There is no two ways about it. And I think he was pretty poor last week against Malmo, I would say as well. Really should have scored or at least made the goalkeeper work when he was put through on goal. It looks like a player that's really struggling for confidence at this moment in time. Perhaps he'll maybe get an opportunity this evening to shine and show why he was brought to the club in the first place. But we need to see a performance out of this lad, do we not?
Yeah, and obviously started so well, didn't he, with that Motherwell game, and now you're getting to the point where it is October and he's a couple of months in. I know Clement kind of defended him a little bit in his press conference after the game on Sunday. When he was through on goal, he did a lot right in that early stages in Malmo in terms of timing his runs, in terms of the positions he was getting into. And it looked like, if you watch his FC20 goals from a couple of seasons ago, it looked like a player who just wasn't quite in the similar confident vein of form that he was then. He's not played a lot last season. This is the most he's played consistently in a while. I think clearly there's a really talented player in there. What stood out to me at points in a negative sense is his physicality. I don't think he's shown that off brilliantly. He's been shrugging off the ball a little bit too much and maybe a little bit too keen to come inside on the left rather than going outside on the right, although he had a little bit more variation at points against Hibs. But yeah, I mean, this is the type of game he's been brought in to influence, and the reason he's consistently starting as well is because Rangers only have one winger. Chefty on the other side will give you that natural balance if he can get high up the pitch, and he'll give you more of a natural feeling of playing with a winger because he can carry the ball. But Barami isn't in the team to play out on the left-hand side. Barami is in the team to try and come and create an extra man in the middle, allow Rangers to try and create a bit of an overload in there. You might see Lawrence drop deeper, as it has been the case over the past few weeks as well. If you look at how last week against Malmo, what Rangers did pretty well, and Clement spoke about this in yesterday's press conference, was they didn't just go direct quickly, they went direct maybe at the right time after they provoked the opposition to press, after they created a little bit of space up the top end of the pitch. And I thought Barami and Dessers linked up well, and Barami created, aside from the goal, he created the four next best, highest value chances, Derek. And that was playing off the left-hand side, but he was coming into the centre. So they'll need a similar level of performance from him tonight. But Czerny was always going to start for me because he gives you that natural width on the right. But you're correct to say we need to see a bit more end product, a bit more of a decisive performance from him today, because Philippe Clement is sticking by him rather than maybe making a little bit of a change of him.
Yeah. On the right, I mean, Tavernier in there. Joshua, do you think you'll get cover and protection, you reckon? I'd imagine Lyon will be targeting that right-hand side of Rangers. most clubs do at this moment in time. So is that a concern for you that he might be exposed out there?
Yeah, well, that's why I thought you might see a little bit more. I don't think Diamandi's played great when he's played higher up the pitch, and I know Raskin was a topic of conversation in yesterday's press conference, but I thought you might see Dujon Sterling come in and to the midfield to make it a little bit more stable, to give you a little bit more cover. But equally, we've not seen Clement really deviate at all, and this is probably an important point. When he's played away in Europe in particular, if you think of Real Betis away, if you think of Benfica away, if you think of Malmo away, it's not really in his nature to sit back that much. Now, he can be pragmatic, I think, with elements of his tactical approach, but he played Tom Lawrence away at Benfica. I can't remember who played at number 10 away, and it might be Sam Lammers who started away at Real Betis, and then last week, obviously, in Malmo, he played Tom Lawrence again. So I guess his theory is that rather than trying to sit back, Rangers are going to take the game to Lyon. The risk is the space that could become available in transition when you look at the options that Lyon have on the wing. That could be a pretty dangerous aspect of the game for Rangers. But I don't think you'll see Tavernier attacking the back post much. I think you'll see him sit pretty deep, as we've become accustomed to, a little bit narrower, not out hugging the touchline, which is where Václav Černý is. But again, that's why I thought you might see a Casemiro or a Sterling there, because they're arguably more suited to that role. But he's on the back of 4 clean sheets at the moment. He had a lot of criticism, rightly, I think, in the Old Firm game. Clement is sticking with them. That the question just says, when is that rotation going to come into play? It was interesting. I know I wasn't on this morning, so just to mention it was interesting the fact that when he was asked about Dujon Sterling, Clement took it upon himself to in effect say the player needs to be available more consistently to hold down a starting position. He does know where he wants to play him long term. Casemiro's shown he was very competent at left back last week. Maybe that comes into the play when you're thinking about that decision tonight. But it is largely in keeping with what Clement has done in European games so far. He's going to try and take the game to the opponent as opposed to sitting in and keeping it tight. That approach will get the crowd on side if it works. But you're right, there is a big risk given the quality that Lyon carry about what could happen when Rangers do leave space when they go forward.
Yep, I'm pleased that Jefte's back in the lineup on the opposite flank. I think he and Barron have been standout performers since arriving in it this summer, and I think he'll add a lot down that left-hand side. Now, Casemiro did really well, I thought, last week, but I can understand why the manager has brought Jefte back into the fold, and he could be a real attacking outlet for Rangers tonight, Joshua.
Yeah, it'd be really important. He'll probably be tested defensively more than he's been in his Rangers career so far. Maybe the Old Firm game, he had to do a lot of defending on that night, but there's going to be a lot of work for him to do. Obviously, Rangers played slightly differently last week, not least because they had their early goal, but also because they didn't have a left footer on the left-hand side. Jefte, for me, I put out I did a piece earlier in the week which told a little bit of the story of the how Jefte came to Rangers, how they identified him, the links with the director of recruitment at Rangers now, Niels Koppen, and the South American market. So people can read that on the website if they want. And I said he'd been the most impressive signing of the season for me so far, Derek, for 2 reasons. I think Barron's right up there with them. But Barron obviously knew the league. He's a couple of years older. Jeff is still 20 years old, younger than Robbie Fraser, as we've mentioned before, although he's played a lot more games for that age. And he's come into a position, if you'd said to people a few months ago, now he'll be tested tonight, don't get me wrong, but if you'd said to people a few months ago, look, he's going to be your left back for the first 3 months of the season and Ridvan's going to be injured, I think there'd have been a lot of apprehension about how is he going to do defensively. Up until now, he's been pretty consistent, pretty solid. Tonight will be a big test of maybe where he actually is. But already he's becoming a really, really important player for Rangers offensively as well, because especially when you're playing without a left winger, he'll give you that natural width on the left-hand side, which is really important.
Yeah, absolutely will. And great to see Diamandi back in the 11 as well, alongside Connor Barron. I thought probably maybe his best game in the Rangers jersey, at least this season, Diamandi last week. Joshua, would you say how big a player is he tonight, do you reckon?
Last week in Malmo?
Yeah,
probably of the season. Yeah, I mean, I think you look back last season, Benfica away is a game that stands out. you probably saw, to summarise along the way, I think that at times the style of play, when Rangers do go direct, doesn't suit Diomande because the ball's going over him too much. And if you watch him when he doesn't get the ball quite often, he's in, I think, pretty good positions. He also does a lot of sacrificial work for the team. So you'll see him, if you watch that game against Malmo last week, often he'll be the one running beyond the striker, he'll be the one running into different gaps, which is maybe creating space for others. And you probably saw why this system needs someone like him next to Conor Barron when he was missing against Hibs. So there's a balancing act for me of the fact that he's not been in brilliant form this season. But equally, I think that the more that Rangers have the ball, the better he's going to play. And at times this season, they're still making that change from becoming a direct team to a team who's a little bit better in possession. But this is the games that he's been signed to try and really influence. This is the games he'll want to impress in, because in a couple of years he'll want to go and make the next step in his career. But there's no doubt that if he was fit, and Clement obviously said yesterday at his press conference that he was going to come back into that midfield position. So a big night for Barron and Diomande, especially because you look at that midfield Leon 3 of Veretout, Matic and Tolisso. A lot of experience, a lot of power, a lot of games at the highest level. Tom Lawrence is going to have to do a lot of work defensively off the ball as well, because that's a Leon midfield 3 that you'd imagine has the ability to really dominate that zone, and Diomande coming back is, I'm sure for Clement is a big plus point going into the game tonight.
Yeah, Matic is a good player, but I mean, he's 36 now. His best years are behind him, so I like to think that Rangers have got legs and are able to win that battle. But we'll soon find out, of course. But that Rangers team tonight: Butland, Tavernier, Suter, Popper, Jefte, Barron, Diomande, Lawrence, Bayrami, Cherny, and Cyril Dessers. On the bench once again for Rangers tonight: Kelly, Dowell, Sterling, Cashin, Weirjo, Balogun, Igaman, King, Raskin, McCausland, Fraser, McKinnon, and Lovelace. Right, before we go, of course, Rangers women's team are playing at this moment in time. They're in the second half of their match against Celtic at Broadwood, and they still lead by a 1-0. Kirsty Howitt putting the Rangers women's team in front in that game, so hopefully they can see that one out. Right, we will be back in full time, myself and Joshua, shortly after the full-time whistle, so hopefully we're celebrating another famous victory in this competition that has served Rangers well in recent times. But it's sure to be a grand occasion at Ibrox, under the lights, European football back at Ibrox as well. I'm sure the atmosphere is going to be quite something. I'm really looking forward to seeing the tifo as well from the Union Bears. But go and enjoy the game, Joshua. Score prediction before you go. How do you see it going?
I've said the draw about the last 3 times you've asked. I'll say 2-1 Rangers. No. Can I say 1-1 again? No, I'm gonna say 1-1. I'm gonna say 1-1, and you see if Rangers actually do something tonight. You can call me a massive pessimist, but I just think that Leon. We know what Rangers can do in these type of nights, etc. Leon also have a lot of quality in that starting 11 and keeping that quiet. I think a draw would be a really good result. Can Rangers do it at home? Of course they can, but I will be boring again and say 1-1. You're probably going to say like 4-0 or something really confident. I
like James's 7-1, which made me chuckle, I've got to say. But, listen, I'd take any sort of positive result tonight. I think I'll go with my heart on this one. Rangers to edge at 3-2. There's a lot of 3-2s coming in. So, hopefully we're treated to a good game and a Rangers victory at the end of it. But, we'll do it. That'll do us for now, folks. Thank you for tuning in as ever. And, we'll speak to you at the end of the game. Bye for now.